Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Growing Our Economy Advisory Committee meeting of October 16th, 2024. And I will just ask for a quick moment of reflection after the Thanksgiving weekend. Everybody hopefully has had lots of time to think about already, but we'll keep it going. Thank you very much. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Knowing that you can, of course, declare later if that comes up. And seeing nothing. Point 4, public participation. Members of the public are encouraged to provide the committee with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with legislative services before the agenda is released. Members of the public who wish to make a deputation about a specific agenda item at the meeting must register in advance with legislative services by 4 p.m. on the day by contacting Deputy Clerk at meaford.ca or 519-538-1060 extension 1110. Presentations are limited to 10 minutes and deputations are limited to 5 minutes. Today, I don't believe, Alex, we have any presentations. Thank you very much. Or any deputations on the agenda items. So we'll move to the approval of the last minutes. Recommendation that the minutes of the August 26, 2024 meeting of the Growing Our Economy Advisory Committee be approved as presented. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Oh, how do I move? Let's have a seconder, please. Thank you, Kelly. Any comments, questions? Seeing nothing, all in favor, please. And thank you. Items for consideration. Community supported vision and priorities discussion. This again was an effort put forth by Reed and Wendy and Evelyn, and thank you very much for the effort you put into the document which was included on your agenda. So do you want to go into discussion, or I would ask Reed, one of you, if you'd like to read the recommendation, and then we could discuss the document accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'll turn it over to Evelyn. Evelyn, I think you had the pen for us on this, and we can all chime in as required.
Absolutely.
So I'm not clear.
If you were to read the recommendation, that way we can put it on the table and we can discuss it accordingly.
Okay, so the recommendation that was put in by that, oh, that one, yes, that's what I'm looking for.
And your microphone, Evelyn, sorry, your mic.
Okay, this helps. All right, the recommendation is whereas the Growing Our Economy Advisory Committee recommends that the municipality embark on a comprehensive and inclusive process to develop a community vision with priorities. And whereas the process to develop a cohesive vision and priorities involves utilizing public consultation, surveys, a community interview process, and meetings with key stakeholders and volunteers within the community. And whereas engaging in this work will assist the committee in establishing future recommendations for developing a more proactive economic development plan and future economic development initiatives, and therefore be it resolved that the Growing Our Economy Advisory Committee recommends that the Council of the Municipality of Meaford direct staff to develop a community vision and priorities process, including the establishment of SMART goals, priorities, deliverables, milestones, and a process for reporting back on the success of these efforts. And so I guess that's...
Thank you. Let me have a seconder for that, please. Reed, thank you. So yes, let's, we will get into conversation about that before we make a vote on that. Actually, I want to do two things here. One is discuss the actual document, and thank you again for that. The one is, the other point is Kelly had emailed me prior to the meeting, was asking about a couple of things that I think are very salient, just regarding the processes of budgetary constraints and approach. This is the first recommendation this particular committee has made to council. So I think your concerns were apt as how that kind of fits into the budget plan. Does it fit in the budget, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought if you were maybe to address that question before we even get into this would go, I think, as a really good explanation as to how this process kind of works and how the process or the recommendations then may fit into the budgetary process or future for the municipality.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question is, as this committee provides recommendations for activities or initiatives or things to consider moving forward, what is the process or alignment for getting that considered into budget? Because when I read the recommendation, I see that we're talking about some potential timelines for this year. And I'm wondering how that would align with current budget versus future budget planning. And that would apply to this item, but as well as anything that this committee kind of takes under its advisement. So I'm just wondering, kind of moving forward also, how that would look.
No problem. Thank you. Through your honor, the budgeting process is underway. It's just we've done our first pass, and so it is being reviewed, and we'll be going to council for review by the 22nd, I think it is, for your review. So in that first pass of budget, it took into account the possible consultation exercise that we contemplated before you did your visioning exercise. So knowing in the last meeting we discussed it, it was already in our minds to include that. So in that particular case, there is an item in there in the budget which will be reviewed by council, and if it's approved, then the visioning exercise and the strategic plan exercise will be budgeted for. So going forward, as you get into a fiscal year, if there are expenses to be incurred, this is an advisory council. So you know, simply coming together and giving some advice to council, and then at that point we can. I mean, we're listening at all times, and we will have our comments as those conversations are happening, and either support or give tips off to where we are, what is possible. And whether it aligns with what our plans are from an active and timing standpoint and resource standpoint. So at every one of these meetings, we'll sort of give, you know, we'll tip our hand, if you will, to where we are, what's possible, and what is in the budget.
So if we want to suggest things for consideration for next fiscal, is there a time period where this committee should identify that to you?
That's a good question. I would say I would table them now. Yeah, I mean, if there was something specific, I mean, we've put our list forward. We've gone from previous budgets and done our budgeting exercise based on you know, the past 4 or 5 years, and so we've moved forward with that. So, but if there are additional items, yeah, you can make recommendations to council, and they will be heard by this department and vetted at that point. We're always listening and always trying to see what makes sense and see what our resources will allow us to do and what is appropriate for Meaford and the municipality. So if it fits into our work plans and makes sense, and we will always, you know, be as flexible as we can.
Yeah, the takeaway for me on that was that don't be afraid to make recommendations or suggestions, because in the budget, every department has a budget. X amount's already going to be allotted. There is going to be X that's going to be there for new initiatives. Yeah, we're not going to go out and pay for $110 wastewater plant apparently right away. But things that come up, we shouldn't automatically say, well, it's past the budget setting time, so we shouldn't bring it up. Something like the strat plan, yes, that's going to be something that is 24 is kind of 25 now is what we'll be shooting for the new start of that. But anything else we put forward, yeah, we should definitely be doing that. And if it doesn't fit in that calendar year, it can go into next year's budget if it's a good idea that needs to be kind of entertained or sussed out. So thank you for bringing that forward, but I just want to make sure that it's clear that everybody can feel free to bring forth ideas. And as Eric said, that will go there, and then we can determine whether it's, financially feasible to pursue or not at council level. So thank you for that.
If I can continue, I like to think we're a reactive department as best we can in a municipality that is, governed by different things. But we are fluid in our thoughts and fluid in our receipt of suggestions, and we will always be. So we encourage suggestions at every turn, and we'll be resourceful to try and solve the problems or meet the recommendations, except if Ron makes them.
Ron, rebuttal?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I noticed step one is identifying a consultant, which of course will incur expenditure and very difficult to determine the estimate right now. It appears the municipality is well into their 2025 budget. However, funding sometimes comes available through surplus dollars and can be allocated in 2025. I said there's been precedent for that. So with respect to our recommendation to council, I think there could be other opportunities to fund it depending upon whether there's surplus dollars.
Thank you. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I did have a question related to step two. Do we know at this point our waterfront master plan and our parks and recreation current master plan, they're both pretty old. Do we know when they're scheduled to be updated and what would the impact of that have on our visioning process?
That's a good question. The waterfront, the Parks Recreation Plan expires in 2025. It was a 10-year plan, so it is dated. In terms of the collaboration of all those, there is budgeting in the budget that will be reviewed for additional studies. So whether they get approved or not, there will be a collaborative approach to all of these things. So it depends on what gets past the budget. But there is a desire to look at the recreation studies, the waterfront, the harbor plan, and then the ACDEV. So those are there.
Evelyn?
My thoughts in relation to how the items in step two are outlined means that they would just inform these were ideas that were around too, and it would assist in public consultation. So the issues that were identified 10 years ago and some, and like the OP, that's just a couple of years. So some of them are newer, some of them are longer ago, but they at least create a series of ideas that the community has raised over the last decade, and then kind of saying, which of these do we want to move forward with? Which new ones haven't we thought of that aren't reflected? So I see it more for this exercise until the municipality is ready to do a proper recreation and park kind of study. So I think still there were probably priorities that were listed that haven't been dealt with or identified maybe in that plan. I haven't looked at it recently.
Reed?
I guess I just want to take us back to when we started to begin discussions about the vision. And I guess what I'm hearing is that, when is the budget set? What are the priorities? What reports do we have? Where are we with that? We're kind of in a constant state of flux. And I guess as our subcommittee met, we said, ideally, this could be a really good time that the next 2 years would tee up the next 20. And by kind of establishing a vision now, we know, as Ron said, there's always surplus funds. We're always tweaking. We're always working those budgets, working the strengths of the committees. to go down a path. But unless we have the clear vision, we're just executing something that's either been on the books for a long time. Maybe it was a priority then, but maybe it's not now. So the sooner we kind of establish what the current vision is and what we think our future needs are, we can tweak it along the way. But I think it's really important that we undertake this as soon as we can.
Surely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to say I completely agree with you, Reed. We've been talking about vision for years now, and it's really exciting that we're finally reaching a point where we can undertake this exercise, and I'm thrilled with that. One further question or thought in relation to the work connected with this. We've been hearing a lot at the county level about the growth management numbers and recognizing that the Ministry of Finance has come out with a significantly higher number than was forecasted by Hampson in terms of our growth over the next 10 years. So I'm just thinking as part of this, we should have a look at those numbers and how they relate to Meaford so that we can kind of anticipate what the expected growth might be, because I think that and the demographics of that will have some impact on what we might determine our vision to be. So just kind of following along with that growth management study and understanding how that comes back and impacts Meaford.
The other point, thank you. Was there anyone else? Oh, Ron, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect of step 2, I see about appropriate milestones and timelines to complete the deliverables. I think this looks like a long-term plan. I'm very happy to see that there are milestones in there, because then you could see how you're progressing through the plan. And if you have to divert a little bit, it gives you an opportunity to go back and rethink without wasting a lot of time and dollars by waiting till the end to get the report. So I really are happy there are deliverables and milestones in this report.
Evelyn?
Following up on your point, I think the sooner we can get this done, the better this municipality will be placed to negotiate our needs as part of the county strategies that are being done, because it just has that much more buy-in and strength from our community if we've gone through this exercise, and we'll get a lot more support. And it has been one of the best practices in the municipalities that have been most successful at getting, I guess, maybe more pieces of the pie than others, because there is just one of the pieces is knowing who you are, where you want to go, and how to do that with partners that are also in that same boat going there. And so municipalities that are very clear as to their community's desires and wants, and because there's always competing ones, but we could take a period, and I think it'll only strengthen our efforts. I think, as it was said, that we're placing ourselves for the next 10 years or 20 years on how to work with partners to improve things for our community and help it grow really well, both economically and being a healthy community and a green community, all the things that, we've heard people want, but at least we'll be clear where it is. So to me, I would hate to see this drag on. So to me, the planning could be between now and the end of the year, and then moving on with hopefully having the consultant start with us in the beginning of the year and then try and get something done. So we're back to the public, maybe in the spring. But you can make it as big as you want or as small. And I think we have to be careful not to keep expanding it. And I like the concept of our benchmarks and setting our timelines, because, this exercise, when it's done well, can be done once the planning is what takes the longest time, and gathering all the information, but then going out and getting input, that would probably not take more than a month at most. And then it's just a matter of consolidating a report and finalizing it. So there's recommendations for council that would come out of the community.
To that point, Eric, go ahead.
I was gonna say, this is, I just want to, first of all, say, or second of all, say thank you, the three of you, for the time you put into this. This is a great document. This is exactly what I'd hope would come out of that. So I really appreciate that. There's nothing in here that is shocking or surprising, or it's fairly straightforward. So I think this is a great document for a consultant to receive and see, what this advisory committee had come up with, and what you're suggesting, the benchmarks, the timelines, and the size, the scope matches up with where we were planning to go anyway. So this is just a reaffirmation of where that we're on the right path. So and I think in our agenda setting meeting, Robert and I spoke, and we would love to keep the three of you engaged in just helping us keep to this vision, and just and use you as sounding boards as we go through the process. If you'd like to stay engaged, that would be appreciated from our team here. So.
Yeah, when we discussed at the agenda setting meeting, this wasn't a voluntold thing. This was you guys did a yeoman's work on setting this up, but I wanted to make sure that obviously if you were willing to kind of continue with the effort, because you've obviously pioneered it already. That Eric and I discussed that, how that might be a great asset to the ECDEV department in general. So.
And it wasn't lost to me that the staff was underlined several times, and staff driven. So I read between the lines and on top of the line. So I get it.
So I would like to also add just a couple of points. One is, yes, point 5, I'm glad the timeline's in there, and yes, and I was gonna ask Eric whether or not, and this will tie into point 3 as well, because when it talks about identifying all stakeholders in town or in the municipality in general, for example, Bob Peel's here from the Chamber of Commerce, so obviously we're talking about reaching out to a number of groups in town, and I think because now we've now established in the municipality an ECDEV department proper. I think Eric and the team has already, I think, been making great inroads in going out and trying to get to know and trying to find out as much as possible about all these organizations already. So I think staff is already kind of in lockstep with that process and that desire. So thank you for that. So I just wondered, with step 5 being bringing the next steps forward to council by spring 2025, did that kind of fit in your, because we had discussed the strat plan before expiring in 2024, that already meet kind of your expectation or desire to kind of have a target moving forward?
Yeah, that aligns perfectly with what we'd hoped. So no problem there.
Okay. Kelly.
Just a question of a procedural nature is how will other committees that have input on this be engaged? Is it at the point when staff bring forward a plan?
I may let Eric discuss that, but we already discussed this at previous meetings where we said, and I think we've discussed it at the council's level as well, we definitely want overlap, because especially in something like economic development, infrastructure, and sporting community, there's already so much natural overlap that there's got to be this sharing of communication, sharing of what's kind of transpiring, what's being accomplished or what's being sought after, so that other committees are also aligning with those visions and goals and saying, yeah, well, we could assist in this regard to that goal. But I'm sure.
Yeah, there's lots of different angles that have to be considered, and stakeholders and the working groups within the municipality, and then also all the residents and businesses, and so there will be, that will have to all be laid out. And I think with the experience around the table, that we will make sure that we include everyone, and also with picking the right consultant and moving forward, that those will be an obvious first step, is just identifying the overlap and the where we need to consider. So that's one of the first steps.
So to make that succinct, so Alex, when a conversation happens of that scope, is that automatically going to be forwarded to the other committees? Like, we can't be reliant, I mean, to a degree, council, we are on different council committees anyway, and we tend to bring that forth and share it regardless. But to Kelly's point, to have a mechanism in place where something that does have a natural overlap, whether that gets shared automatically to the other committees is probably wise.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think it just is a matter of coordination. I think it depends between staff members and council members. By the sounds of this project, it would involve a lot of community engagement, the larger community as well outside of the committees. So I don't know exactly what that would look like. I think we could just communicate amongst each other and get it on the agendas, or we would just have to figure out some way, but I don't think it would be too difficult to manage that.
Right. And it seems to me that we are now making this recommendation to council. That recommendation, if it's a recommendation to council that has bearing on another committee, that recommendation should almost automatically be on another agenda. Because I can think for myself, the strengthening our community would automatically look at that and go, yes, there are definitely things we could contribute to that. So I would think that just beyond relying on one council member saying, hey, guys, make sure you go aware, to make it some kind of a more of an official transcript that everybody is being shared with the information might be a thought. Read.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think in our early discussions about establishing this community vision and the priorities, we really saw it as bigger than economic development. We saw it as setting the agenda that each committee would set their roadmap from. So we're kind of putting this forward, but it's really kind of a council initiative that comes down to each advisory group, it's for the community to set the vision. And from that, it sets the roadmap for each and every aspect of where the community is involved.
Yeah. Okay. Ron.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I notice we're looking at the spring of 2025 as a reporting date. The other thing I see through here is various milestones. I was just wondering whether ECDEV, after looking at the process, could establish the dates for the milestones. Because if those dates are met, then you can be well assured you're going to be on schedule for April 2025. And those milestone dates with those reports could be reported to us.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are many steps that remain to be seen, and we don't have a key player here at the table, which would be the CAO. And so the CAO would be bringing in the whole picture, and we as a director with the municipality, we don't move too far without working with our CAO. So when it gets to a council meeting and gets back to our director group, then we will definitely be looking at that on the whole. So to answer your question, which milestones, I can't answer in terms of milestones and timing until that would be, if I was in a silo, I could say that was what I feel feels reasonable, but we need to make sure we move together as a team. So I do need to discuss with the CAO.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I was just suggesting that be part of the reporting back to us to get timely reports. That was the only consideration I was looking at. Thank you.
I would suspect that going through its natural evolution process here, it will be a recommendation to council. Council then would hopefully instruct staff to carry on, in which case then a report would come back, at which point in time timelines could be established with milestones. Hopefully at that point. I would seem to be the natural.
I think what would be reasonable for this committee is for us to bring back updates where we are.
Yeah. Yep. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think a lot of the answers to my questions have sort of come out during the conversation, but I just want to come back, if I may, Evelyn, to something that you'd mentioned earlier in suggesting that the committee sort of create a planning process and perhaps engage a consultant in the new year. Did I hear you correctly on that? And if so, could you expand a little bit on how you see the committee moving into that planning process? Just what your thoughts are on what we might undertake before we got to a point where it was appropriate to bring in the consultant.
Well, I think as Eric mentioned that we did underlying issues about the staff role. And I guess we feel, at least the three of us in our discussions, felt that this has to be owned by the municipality, by council saying, yes, this is something that they see as a priority, and by staff to say that they see it as a priority. So it's kind of a backwards way to answer your question, which is we see this as staff leading, like that they come together with whatever group is that's going to be dealing, because it is not just an economic development vision, it's clearly a community vision, which has several parts to it. And we want to hear from the community around for all those parts. So I think our role would be advisory only to whatever consultant and staff group is put together to guide it. I don't see us as guiding it as much as acting as potential advisors, and there may be some others that might be included in an advisory committee, because we're talking about, you know, making sure all of it, but it's more the process. And so I don't see us directly meeting with that consultant per se, as if we're guiding it. We'd like to see the staff group and, you know, whatever people they would like to help advise them do that. And, you know, is there any other aspect to that you want to add to?
No, I think some of the actual functions might be, you know, assisting with the focus groups, selecting various sectors to be consulted with, some of the timing, maybe some straw dog lines of what the community represents. Maybe going through some of the surveys to condense it down. But I don't see our role as driving it, but kind of some of the doers.
Okay, thank you very much for discussion on that. So if there's no other questions on that, I would ask for a vote to pass that recommendation to council. All in favor? Thank you. Under other items for consideration, B, Economic Development Fall Engagement Plan and 2025 Planning Exercise. Eric, I think you were going to speak to this.
Yeah, just wanted to, again, just sort of like in an update fashion, just to give you an idea of what, you know, what we have been up to. I guess I should introduce, if this is her first meeting with the Growing Our Economy. This is Jessica Kenyon, our small and medium business liaison, and she has been an absolute asset to our operation in the, how many weeks have you been? 2, 3? 3 weeks only. But Jessica has a wealth of knowledge, in both locally and with the businesses, with the residents and the businesses, and incredible mind. I thought my mind was creative and energetic. But Jessica's got some great ideas. So we've been working together very, very closely, and which has been very exciting. So welcome to Jessica. It's a pleasure to have you. But I wanted to just give you just a quick update on things that we have accomplished, things we're working on, things we're working towards. And as I was pulling this information together, I went on to I was just on the Grey County, because we're working so closely with Grey County and they're doing such great work. I've been working closely, obviously, with Savannah Myers and several of the other people with Grey County. So they have something called the Great Reset, which was in 2023, but it kicked off their 2024. And in that Great Reset, GREY apostrophe T Reset, they came up with 5 priority areas. And so I'm going to use those 5 priority areas and let you know what we've done sort of in those areas or where we're headed. So the 5 priority areas, the first one is leadership and collaboration. And just to let you know, that we, Jessica and I attended Grey County's Economic Leadership Forums. There was a full day of sessions at Sydenham campus, which was where we got to learn more about Sydenham campus and the Henry Bernick Business Center. What else? There's the Grey Makerspace as well. So we had a great tour and the 3 sessions that day. We are participating in sector summits. Grey County is holding sector summits. So I asked, I think it was Kelly provided some names. Kelly and Reed gave some names, but they were where the 4 sector summits that Grey's hosting are manufacturing, tourism, agriculture, and small business. So we put forward about 4 or 5 names of our own businesses that would be sitting there, and those are taking place starting October 21st, and they're going until the 31st. And so Jessica and I will go there. The format is that they have the businesses in a roundtable, and then the economic dev officers on the outside of the room, just sort of listening to the feedback. So those are coming up in the next 2 weeks. There's a presentation on November the 7th, which surely be there for that's at the Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee. So Meaford is putting forward a small presentation, a 5-minute presentation of what we're up to. Participating with Grey County working groups with other EDOs, and those happen on a fairly regular basis. So those are a great resource for us, and learning lots and lots from other municipalities. And then we have a very strong relationship, developing strong relationship with the actual Grey County. Savannah's one of them, Kalinas, Sanford, Crystal Ellis, and then one other one I'll just tell you about shortly. So that's kind of in the leadership and collaboration where we're leading and being led and collaborating with Grey County, which has been I think they're doing a fantastic job. The second bullet, the second area of priority was investment readiness, and we have a meeting. We're touring the municipality with Steve Furness. That's next week. And so we've given him sort of our industrial lands that are available, and he's going to pick kind of the ones that he sees as of interest and the ones that he has. And so we're touring those lands. That's next week. Working with building and planning to try and to smooth out that relationship with, from people having an interest coming into Meaford, and then just helping them through the process. So just working on those relationships, and then gathering data on the current businesses that we have, getting an up-to-date list of all of our businesses, and also the available commercial assets that we have. So we're working on that right now. The third bullet is business retention and expansion, BR&E. We have a gathering coming up on early November for community connectedness, which is will be released soon. And that's not a ECDEV initiative; it's just a Meaford municipality one. We've had some great success in the CIP processing. When we came on board, when I came on board, we inherited some stalled CIP applications. So we're pleased to have pushed those through, and we are now currently refining the process, and we'll be coming to council in November with a refined process. We've made some improvements there. As we head into November, you'll see in the newsletter, you'll see some spotlights of one of our CIP successful implementers, and it's in agriculture. So you can keep your eyes open for that. We're doing spotlights of businesses. Those will be coming out in the new newsletter coming up in November. So, and we have, with Jessica's leadership, we're doing a holiday engagement collaboration with Christmas on the Bay and with our businesses and the retailers to help boost the sales and traffic throughout the community. So that's where we are with business retention and expansion. Number 4 of the area from the priority area is entrepreneurship and innovation. So speaking of which, we have Bob appeal here. So I wanted to just remind everyone that on November the 7th is a Dragon's Den, which is a great asset for Meaford, and we're so lucky to have that there. And I would encourage each of you and us to go and attend and bring some friends, and let's try and fill the stands for Dragon's Den. So we're very lucky to have that opportunity. So and some other innovative things. You know, we're working on building up our portfolio for our existing businesses to help them with grants. One important one is Digital Main Street, help businesses, small businesses transition into kind of the digital age, and grants are readily available. And with Digital Main Street, they also have lots of courses that are offered on a monthly basis. So just making those resources available to our small businesses. What else? Had some great conversations with Georgian College and with YMCA, thanks to Evelyn, made the connection. But just basically making these phone calls and just raising awareness with the different organizations, just to let them know that Meaford is interested in raising their profile. And I think just merely just having those conversations and is being very effective. Hopefully we'll see things like job fairs and mentorship programs coming into the Meaford area. So those are what we're working for. And then the last area of priority was destination development and sort of the tourism base. So we're working with the RT07, which is the Regional Tourism 07, and Southern Georgian Bay, just to increase our exposure. Jessica's working on some media spots. Ron will be happy to know that we're meeting with two videographers, one both next week actually, but just to discuss, just to explore the option of the possibility of featuring Meaford, and ideally getting it out in front of the people coming to Meaford Hall, right? I got you, Ron. We have a new employee as well, Nisa, and she is really working hard on pulling together the events calendar for the municipality. And she compiled, you know, there's a list that's on the on our site, but there are so many events that we don't, that kind of are just not on that site. So we're pulling them all together, and it's incredible. The list goes from maybe like, you know, 7 or 8 events to about 25 events when you actually drill down a little bit. So just making those available. And not on our list, but what should be on the list is Kelly Ward's play at Woodford Hall in early November. Looking is coming up, 6 nights, 3 nights, 1 week, 3 nights another. So again, I expect you all to go to that and cheer her on. Is that right, Kelly? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Good enough plug. What else? We're revamping our event management process. So all the special events that you see in town have had some various struggles, and we're really trying to streamline that process. So Nisa is the special events manager right now, so she's the coordinator of those. So that we're really making some advancements there. She's making some very, very quick advancements. So we're really, really happy about that. We are working on our revamped food truck procedures. Those are what we're working on right now. We have the flying fork. Who gives the flying fork in the harbor now? And that came with a few challenges, and so we're streamlining that process and making the application. It hasn't been revamped since 2012, so we have to do bylaws and application processes and get that advanced. So that's working on. And then finally, the STR review process that is due to come out. So we're working on that to come to council in early November. So is that enough?
Is that all?
Yeah, is that all? Anyway, just to let you know, but that's not to say, you know, we've done budgeting, we've done work plans, we've done org chart, we've done hiring, and it's a busy municipality. And just to let you not forget, there's lots going on behind the scenes. So
Let me just say first off that for years of this municipality not having a dedicated economic development kind of drive or department or whatever, I thank you. That is a lot on your plate, but I thank you for tackling it full bore. And and making all these initiatives come to fruition, because realistically, everything is economic development. It really has to be under that guise. And what your team is doing is really good work, and we really thank you for it. So I'll just throw that open to questions for Eric on that. Evelyn.
I also wanted to say thank you. I heard a whole bunch of things on that list that I think several of us who've been around for a few years, getting grayer, have been talking about. So I'm kind of excited to hear it's actually happening. On the other question I had was, you listed kind of the groups generally. I was just wondering if we're also keeping tune to the fact of the rural and the urban. And I was just wondering, of all the initiatives, how much of this was involving businesses and all that stuff related to the rural area.
So you want more, I'm just saying, Evelyn?
No, I was just wondering of the current things that you're doing.
Yeah, no.
I was just wondering if, as we do that, there's it becomes part of our thinking that we need to keep a balance. and
Yeah,
ensure
absolutely.
That the rural needs are being met as well as the urban, you know.
Just as a small example, we have maybe 4 CIP applications currently in. The one that we're featuring is an agricultural one. So we are trying to, I mean, there are other ones that we could feature in the downtown core. We are trying to show that it is important. One of the first questions, we went out and actually toured, Jessica and I went out and toured the farm where the solar panels went up. And, the first question we asked is, how can the municipality help agriculture? How can we help you in your space? And so those are the questions we're asking. And so it is important for us to get to the bottom of it. And, it doesn't, having the Santa Claus parade may not be of interest to someone who isn't interested in that. So finding out what is of interest to and what helps is important to us. So we are getting we'll slowly get out there. No, we don't ever want to neglect, the small businesses that are on Highway 610, they're out to Kettles and the Harley Davidson, and we know that they're, it's just we're getting there, and it is never out of our scope. And we're not so myopic to not think about those other areas. So, and it was very, we're going to talk about it shortly, but there's a nice initiative that's coming that you're suggesting later in this meeting. So that's a great other one. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to add my appreciation. I mean, that list is so extensive, and it's everything that's been missing all this time when we've been asking for economic development staff. So thank you and congratulations. And I just wanted to add to Evelyn's point that, and I know this came up at our last meeting, but Eric made great inroads when we went out to Bogner with the good folks out there at the board. And I think there was a lot of very valuable discussion about how to integrate them into the activities and all of the promotion and everything that's going on sort of in Meaford proper. So I did have a question though, Eric, with the very extensive list that you went through. I just wondered if you'd had any conversation with Savannah about the business gap analysis and whether that was something that you were going to be involved in, or if you know if that's going forward.
I have a document from a business gap analysis, and I can't remember what town it was from, but we are looking at that right now, and that's going to be something that we're going to work with Jessica and the team. But we're just getting through these, so one by one we'll get through. But Jessica's been running some very good reports with Spotlight, which is a service that we pay for through Grey County. So running reports, getting demographics, and that's part of it. And so one of the things that we just started today is just itemizing the businesses. Part of the gap analysis is just knowing who is in the spaces and then where they cluster. And so we've started that exercise. So that is coming. It is the data that we're compiling is with the interest of doing that business gap analysis. So the way we're structuring our data findings is that we're structuring that way with a business gap analysis in mind. Yeah.
Reid.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, I too am very encouraged to hear all of the list of things that you're undertaking. This is refreshing news. You mentioned a couple of things tweaked my mind as you mentioned that you were providing Grey County, the list of industrial investment lands and commercial lands. Would you be able to share that with this committee? Because I think it's been long noted that we do need some sort of inventory on what's available here. Because with foreign direct investment or any investment, ideally they want to know how soon from the time they pick a site to the time they can cut the ribbon it would be. So that would be very, very helpful.
Anyone else for her? Not, thank you again for that. That's very comprehensive and much appreciated. Thank you. And moving on to items for information, 7A, well, this is a coincidence because after Evelyn's point about rural kind of engagement, we spoke about this at the agenda setting meeting as well. So I had the pleasure of attending Open Fields farm tour. So on Grace Sobel, Alex Maxwell, councillor of Blue Mountains, had approached me and said, think there would be any interest in Meaford kind of participating in this next year. So Blue Mountains Initiative, spoke with Tim Henry, their economic development director. So I went to Ardill's Orchard, I went to Kimber Sheep Farm in Kimberley, and I went to Spy Cidery. Didn't make the other two. But it was to your point about engaging rural. It was really well set up. They had kind of a market at each one. They had people explaining the businesses. It was a really great opportunity, and they were all very busy, lots of people. And I thought with our own, we've got Blue Bay Orchards and Grandma Lambs and Vales and Good Family Farms, Meaford Maples, there's Coffin. There's so many things that we could do, kind of an adjunct to that, if we wanted to team with that kind of an enterprise. It happened on the weekend of the Applecraft Harvest Festival. So there was tons of people already, driving through. So this is just another event that people can kind of add to. So I'm just going to leave that with kind of Eric and his team, because we did talk about it. I did talk to Tim, and what they said they were specifically looking for was, it doesn't everybody, but it's cash, because essentially what they did was they spent about $15,000 in marketing, a fair chunk of change. Now, I spoke with them subsequently, and they did say there are grants available, though, to help with offset funds to do that. So if it's an initiative that we could potentially entertain, that would help kind of be more inclusive of our rural neighbors and businesses, then it might be something we could look into. But I just thought it was well worth noting because it was a really well organized and entertaining and informational event. So put that in your calendar for next year. Which brings me to point B, which is the mosaic mural unveiling, which is happening this Sunday, October 20th at 1 p.m. down at the harbor. And I'm sure many of you have seen, there are 4 very large posts down there. And there's going to be the anchor for what's going to be a very large mural. It's even larger than I originally had thought it was going to be. I think it's going to be amazing. So this is through the Mural Mosaic Global Roots Project. Meaford applied. We are fortunate because they're in a handful of cities across the country and across the world. But the fact that Meaford was chosen to participate in this, once again, is going to be, I think, a great asset. I also think from the auspice of our strategic initiatives and our council priorities, it's going to be a nice, I think, tie between Market Square and the harbor. It's going to draw people down that way. So I think there are a lot of advantages to this from an ECDEV and from a tourism basis. So hopefully everybody can attend that on Sunday afternoon and share in that good news. Point C, there's a Business View article, Municipal of Meaford. I'm sure it's in your agenda, and I presume all of you have had a chance to look at that. And I will give nods here to our Mayor Kentner is in the audience, and together with Deputy Mayor Keaveney and Kim Buckham, our CAO, went to a lot of work to put together this piece called A Growing Hub of Community Spirit and Sustainable Development. So that is it's in Business View article, magazine. It's an article, and it obviously does have a business slant, but we just thought what a great tool it would be if we kind of tweak that to be an economic development tourism piece that we could get out there beyond just the business aspect, because that has a lot of valuable information in it. So again, thank you to the authors of the piece, because it does show Meaford's great assets. It puts us in a great light, and it was a great effort. Thank you. Actually, I don't know if you wanted to comment on that at all, Shirley, as you were part of the process.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, we are really proud of this piece. It was a little while in the making, but I know Mayor Kentner is really looking forward to getting some printed copies of that distributed. And I think there have been conversations perhaps with you, Eric and Jessica, about how that might happen, but we just want to spread that out far and wide. And I think there's a definite appetite to request another interview so that we can, as we suggested, this had a business land on it, but there's so many other opportunities to promote Meaford. So we'd like to put different spins on that. If I think we've luckily enough been interviewed twice for this magazine, but I also think this was a very positive process, and we might get lucky enough to be invited to do this again. So if we can arrange that, we'll put a different spin on it, and the more of this that we can get out into this community, but beyond, for sure, the better. So yeah, we're really proud of this, and I just want to thank Ross, because I know he made a lot of phone calls to get this moving forward, and the searching for the photos and all of the integration with the good folks at Business View was quite a bit of work. So Mayor Kentner, thank you to you for all of your efforts in making sure that this came to fruition.
Thank you, Shirley. Any comments or questions on that? Kelly?
Sorry, I have a question about, or comment about open fields, if we can go back.
Absolutely, certainly.
Thanks. So I just wanted to challenge, when staff consider this opportunity, is to factor in that many of the businesses that participate in these events are open to the public, farm gate sales types of places. I did see when I attended the event that they did have tents up from some outside organizations for sort of awareness building purposes. And I think when considering this as an opportunity is look to see how the rest of the agriculture sector in Meaford could be profiled through awareness of activities at this type of event, just because the majority of agriculture in the municipality isn't a farm gate sale type of place. So that's just what I offer for consideration.
Yeah, it's a very good point, because you're right. There were a great confluence of very many businesses being displayed. They obviously came together, worked together, and it was put together very well. And also, they also had a team from Blue Mountain Municipality. They had their own information tent set up at each location. So again, it was a great opportunity just to kind of espouse what was going on in the municipality in general from an academic perspective, and just to talk about our rural neighbors. So thank you for that. Sure.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And just a point to add to that, recognizing that the town of Blue Mountains has a very busy and successful agricultural committee. This community doesn't have one of those at this point in time, but it is something I think that is in the early stages of discussion, because I think adding that component to our list of committees could be really valuable. So it is my particular hope that going forward, we will be able to create a rural or an agricultural committee of some sort that can help to drive this kind of promotion.
Great.
Just a further question regarding the Business View article that was done. Has there been any brainstorming sessions on how that can be used? Like, I'm thinking we should be using it for doctor recruitment. We should be using it for potential businesses in the area that want to expand. Direct mail. A number of different avenues to be using it. And I don't know if we put on their brainstorming hat, but we should definitely capitalize on it.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I fully agree with you, Reed. I think there's an opportunity, whether it's done in this way or through our next point, through Ron's suggestion of a community profile, because I visualize us renewing our community profile. The one we have is ancient, and doing specific profiles for each purpose of doctor recruitment, business recruitment, attracting a workforce, attracting, residents in general, investment, all of those lists of things, and tweaking the language so that it's appropriate for each of those approaches. So I think there's a combination of ways to do that, but I think we agree that it needs to be done because that's one very important tool specifically for doctor recruitment, is having everything in one place, as well as for investors or developers so that they can get everything they need in one succinct document rather than trying to navigate our difficult website.
Anyone else? Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to follow up on Reed's comment, we are using the digital version and sharing it with our existing businesses just to let them know what the spotlight, or what the feature of that article is. And the print copies are available for pickup, Mr. Mayor. They're available today, but I wanted to let you know they were printed at Crystal Dragon in town. It's just a small little plug for a small business, but they do great printing and great things at Crystal Dragon. So just a little plug. But yes, we're using the digital version now, and anyone that has an inquiry about coming to Meaford, then that's a response, and we'll get back with an email just to say, read this article and just see how fantastic Meaford is. So it is being used. Yeah. But any other suggestions are appreciated.
Well, and of course, once our ducks are in line, then there could be a proactive call program out to potential companies to consider Meaford.
That sounds like a segue into point D on our items for information. The municipality of Meaford community profile, as Shirley alluded to, Ron, in your agenda, did provide some suggested contents and had some great ideas about that moving forward. So Ron, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to what was, I was involved with a corporate municipal prior to, so I do have access to some information, but from reviewing my previous engagement and my engagement here today, I'm excited about Meaford and what we're doing. So congratulations, Eric, and your department for all the good work that's happening here. With respect of the document that was submitted right after the message from the mayor, as a result of our visionary discussion today, I think vision should be included on that document as well. Meaford, growing, prosperous, connected community of choice. And some of the other ones I'll speak to is strategic location. I won't say much about that. General demographics, transport infrastructure. We now have an airport. And we're relatively commutable distance to some of the hubs, the bigger centers, Hamilton, Toronto, and so on like that. Employment industries and top employers, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention agriculture as part of that in this community. All you have to do is go out to the farmers markets and experience Meaford as an apple center in Ontario. Some of the other ones that are in these are employment rates. I know when I was coming to Meaford, I was interested in real estate and what the level of property taxes were. And I think other people that considering moving to Meaford, I think that's an important consideration for them. Education, I think we can make a commitment there. We have the Georgian College close, so incentives, Jess mentioned today, and Eric talked about SIP. And another unique with us, I think, is community of communities. Leith and Ann and Bognor, others, for example, contribute to the municipal vibrancy and feature a unique blend of commercial and agricultural opportunities, complemented by galleries, shops, and eateries. Some of the wordsmithing that we might do to promote Meaford. Recreation and tourism events. I just can't imagine the number of volunteers that make our events successful in Meaford. And any of the places I've been, I can reassure you that volunteerism in Meaford is very high on my list. And we have recreational opportunities as Meaford. Eric's working on an economic development strategy that could be part of this document. Then we have community organizations, service clubs, event participation, recreational groups and other organizations. And mentioned by Jessica today, the business visitation program that will look after our existing businesses. I know where I came from, they were always looking for new businesses, but I always did the math equation and saying one gained and one lost nets out to zero still. Then quality of lifestyle. I think if we look at Meaford, it's just a great community to be part of there. Meaford Hall, the harbor, the hospital, doctor recruitment that we have mentioned earlier, recreational and cultural opportunities, abundance of trails, small ambience, warm and welcoming people in Meaford. And there's some that are probably can be added to that list as well. The other one that I think is important, and our ECDev people have recognized it, is small business services, workshops, being available for consultations, one-on-one consultations that are available to help our existing businesses. The other item that was the top 10 things to do in Meaford, and maybe it was 15, maybe it's 20, but I didn't go any further. So that's just a quick talk about that. And in addition, what I did at one of the last council meetings, I met one of the principals from Sinclair Homes. And it seems that developers are focusing on Meaford. And I think the opportunity exists. Ask these people. We know they're doing marketing studies when they're looking at significant investment. So I would like to be interested in asking them why they chose Meaford. So that concludes a little brief of the community profile, and we've done a lot to significantly add to it in this meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Any questions or comments for Ron on the community profile? Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ron, great job on itemizing, the content of this. Couple of things. First of all, there is a site, Invest Ontario, that profiles many of the communities in the province. And I think from a category standpoint, we should be very, very consistent so that, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We fit into that database. And if there's a search being done, all of these would come up. Site selectors that look for the next location for investment are kind of like when you go to buy a used car or a new car today. You're already predetermined before you end up on that lot. You're not talking to the sales rep on, is it four-wheel drive or not, because they've done their homework. They get out there and they've shortlisted 2 or 3 communities or models that they're interested in. And so I think by using the pre-existing ones, we know what the important ones are, the ones that are searched the most. And we just make sure that we're, front row center with the best information that we can populate it with. So that's my few comments.
Anyone else? Great, thank you. Before we go to committee inquiries, Eric, I should have said this when you did present your economic development fall engagement plan. There was a lot there. Could I ask you to can you itemize that and share that with the committee? It's a great list, and I'm not sure Alex could type that fast. So I would just be nice to have that itemized, so there were also some good dates in there as well of events coming up and things like that. So it'd be nice just to have that comprehensive list so we can relate back to it. Point 8 on the agenda, committee inquiries. Does anyone have any inquiries today? Seeing nothing, we'll move on to communications. The committee will consider correspondence received by members of the public during each meeting. To share your comments, thoughts, or concerns with members of the committee, the public can send an email to deputyclerk@meaford.ca. When emails are received to this email address, They will be compiled into a correspondence list, which is then distributed to committee members prior to the meeting. The cover sheet of this list will be included on each meeting agenda. The contents of the correspondence list are not included on the public agenda to protect the privacy and personal information of those residents who choose to send in their thoughts and comments. Today, we do have actually the BMA 2023 Ontario Municipal Report, short as it is. So thank you for that, Eric. You want to comment on that a little bit, maybe?
Not really, but I will. It's a long report. I was asked by the consultant who pulled that together to comment on Meaford's economic development activities, strategies. I can't remember what it was, but I gave him back the information he was looking for. But as I was going through that, I mean, there was some really interesting information there. You know, Gray Bruce is looking, or Gray Bruce, I think it was, is looking pretty strong. Like, there's got some really good indicators there. Meaford is, you know, really healthy, it seems, in terms of employment and population growth and average incomes and things like that. So it's in a nice position. So just wanted to share that with the group and see if you found some other interesting things there. That's it.
Well, thank you very much for sharing it. It's a heady document, and certainly a lot of great information. Date of next meeting. I don't even know what the next meeting is. If we got that established.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are working on the committee schedule for 2025. So
Okay.
this is the last meeting of the year.
Correct.
I had to think about that. 2025, yeah.
Thank you. So we will TBA that. Evelyn.
Will there be possibilities of attending this meeting virtually in the early part of the year?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The procedural bylaw says that we do not permit virtual attendance. So obviously spectators can watch on YouTube, but virtual participation is not permitted at this time.
We do not have the current technology in place to do it well. That has been discussed at council level as well. There is a desire to get to the point where we are able to do that. We're just not there yet. So stay tuned, literally.
Well, I just see that as an issue for the first meeting of 2025.
And we do agree. Yeah, there are concerns, hence it is being looked at. So, yes.
Okay.
Great.
Mr. Chair, would there be opportunity for a special meeting regarding, I mean, the vision can't wait to the new year. So how would we provide input prior to the next meeting?
Eric, would you?
The three of you could get together and discuss it and submit more input if you wanted to submit more, or if, we're going to proceed as necessary, but if you want more input, you could do that. Yeah.
And again, I'm not curtailing to three people. We're not trying to thrust work upon you, but if we put four, then we have a bit of a quorum problem. So this is we have to be a little bit careful on that one, but yeah, so anything that can work together to kind of further that would be brilliant. Ron.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and furthering of Reed's comments, would it be possible for us to get some updates as to how you're proceeding and what is happening?
I'm thinking. Some updates. No. I'm happy to speak with each of you at any time if you want to reach out by email or phone call. I see you regularly enough, so be happy to share updates that way.
Well, I guess this is a bit cart before the horse, because at this point, this is a recommendation to council.
That's right.
Do you have a number of initiatives that you've already outlaid that are happening?
Yeah.
Hence, that's why I kind of asked for that list so that we can just see kind of what you're working on in general. But yes, until I think the recommendation actually gets in front of council, then the decision is made whether it's going to kind of follow that letter or whether it's tweaked or whatever. I think to that point, Ron, I think then we can look at milestones, benchmarks, and progress at that point, I think.
This is an advisory committee to council. And
Correct.
then I, I work with the CAO, or we work with the CAO, and that's our reporting chain. So, as we come to these meetings, I'm happy to provide where we are.
Yep.
But being, accountable or sending regular updates, give me a call.
Yeah.
Happy to come for a drink, Ron.
The joy of these meetings as well, we do get to play a bit of interrogators, so we will kind of follow up and ask questions, so. Does anyone else have anything? If not, thank you for today and great conversation and thoughts. And I will call the meeting adjourned.